then he was eligible. So we're just saying that the erroneous accounting and how many other black farmers out there should have gotten this and have lost their land over the years because of USDA ongoing systemic discrimination.
So that's really what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. Well, not get to the bottom of. I mean, it's really just I guess an extension of what a lot of people are already out here doing, and that's trying to get black farmers their fair share.
Yeah.
So my question, though, because you've been successful with your lawsuits, and Pickford is, semi-successful. At least they got through. And really, what is our next big case? North Carolina has the Black Farmers Bill,
Right.
and that hasn't really gone anywhere, I know. But I guess the thing that I am interested in talking to your husband about, and you and other farmers, is about the Freedmen classification, the legal designation of Freedmen, and how that would protect us from these challenges.
Right.
And then also, how do we go back, and what does that kind of suit look like, or is there, I guess the thing.
You want to dig a well with Kara, and because I'm gonna tell you how Kara is. Kara's gonna tell you like it is. Okay, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. And having worked on these cases from an administrative point of view, it can be challenging. And when I look at reparations, and I say that because I'm a descendant of the 1619 Project, I'm a Goins, and when my grandfather came over on the white line, so, I mean, I have that ancestry.
Same.
And so I do the genealogy, but how many people today, if we were to pass, so I look at it from an administrative perspective, because I've had to deal doing technical assistance in all the class actions for discrimination. What was the bar? How did you read through it, and know this is a red flag because if you answered this, and a lot of people not even knowing, okay, if the time period was from 1987 to, let's just say 1991, and you're talking about something in 1965, then you're not going to get the money. That is the problem. So we have to be very clear that when we're putting things forward, that not only
of harm,
that those people know that it's, this set of time period, because people will say with the discrimination cases, oh, well, it's for anybody who ever worked on a farm. No, it wasn't.
Right.
It was for those people who attempted to borrow money from USDA during this particular time period. And because you're saying it this way and you've presented it that way, then therefore you weren't eligible. So, that is a challenge, that when we frame something,
right,
that we frame it understanding who's going to qualify and who ain't going to qualify.
Right.
That's what we fall into the problem with the reparations and the lineage base.
Right.
And you're
so then
leaving people out, or you've been divisive.
Right. So then I look and I say, okay, well, do we go back to slave records? Do we go back to 1860? How many people were on a record? How many people weren't on a record? And even like with my tribe, I'm Lumbee, and here, in order to be an enrolled member of the tribe, you have to have direct ancestors that are on the 1910, 1911 census. Okay, so if my aunt lived in Maryland or Chicago or Florida in 1910 and she weren't on this census, then her children aren't eligible. Her grandchildren aren't eligible. Doesn't mean they're not Lumbee, but they're not entitled to enrollment. Okay, but how they can circumvent that and still be eligible is if the grandparent is on there, because they're a direct descendant of that grandparent. So, we have to look at it from an administrative perspective. And that's why I looked at this and I said, when they put things in place, even for reparations, and you say, okay, well, I'm a descendant, and, I know majority of people probably have some type of slave relationship in their lineage. But how do you prove that? Most people can't get beyond their grandparents. They don't know who their great-grandparents were or great-great-grandparents. And then, we have so much paper side, and we think so-and-so's your granddaddy, but he ain't really your granddaddy. Right. I mean, my mother-in-law did a DNA test at 74, 75 years old and found out that her father isn't her father.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
We tested 3 siblings and found out that they all had 3 different baby daddies.
Oops.
But I look at the 1865
those darn DNA tests.
1865 census,
Right.
My grandparents are there, and they have 15 kids.
Right.
Well, none of them, if I have 30% white in me now, then those 15 kids, they weren't my granddaddy's kids.
Right.
And they teamed people together like that
Right.
loved each other and had a partnership or whatever that looked like.
Right.
I don't think they were even making the same babies. I mean,
Right. And
Well-
then, you know, and I wasn't even familiar until I watched on PBS The Book of Negroes. And then I went to Mecklenburg County, Virginia, and looked at their Book of Negroes.
Wow.
How many people have even gone to their county courthouses and said, okay, well, you know, where's the Book of Negroes? Where's the Book of enslavement? Who was free and who wasn't?
Right.
And just
like
because it's in this
1870,
book.
you just became a whole nother person in
Right.
1870.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that as a verified member of the reparations movement, we ascribe to Dr. Darity's book, Where Do We Go From Here to Equality. So if you can trace one parent back to the 1870 census, that means you're eligible. Essentially, the number of people here from other countries in 1960 was to the right of the decimal point.
Right.
So for people who arrived, just we're talking about periods of harm, if you arrived after 1965, you did not go through Jim
Right.
Crow, you did not go through slavery. And so really what the claim should be is one more of genocide.
Right.
And the fact that the current lineage wealth gap and the projection of zero wealth is cultural and
Yes.
ethnocide and annihilation.
And we meet 5 of those. I mean, we met some of those with the United States. I mean, the United Nations on genocide. We check off some of those
Right.
out of the 5 that they've identified.
No, we check off all.
Okay.
In every state
Okay.
that we exist in, we meet the criteria of genocide. Anytime you are double everything bad and half of everything good, that's pretty much the mathematical equation. And then there's having Negro. Like my birth certificate says Negro.
Right.
I'm not a Negro.
Having Negro or colored on your birth certificate, you know, and then there's the other thing about reverse engineering. If you don't have any immigration papers, then you're pretty much. And but my mother's family comes from Chickahominy, Virginia. So my family is affiliated with the Chickahominy, and then in Halifax, the Hallowasaponi, the Cherokee here down in South Carolina, and obviously the Lumbee. Supposedly, I'm related to John Figaro. That's the fake Indian.
But that's the Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican.
Precisely. I watch.
Yeah, so it goes back to the Riviera, and but the DNA testing has really helped us a lot. And in some areas, in some other areas, it's hurt people because it changed their narrative. But to me, I mean, it's a journey. And, if you're going to be free, then let's take that road to freedom.
And let me tell you why I think the Freedmen designation is so powerful, because that's where basically we all intersect.
Right.
So with the 13th Amendment, we were all declared freedmen. Right. Anyone who had been in, I don't know if we all know that 30% of the slaves initially were indigenous people. Mm-hmm. So all up and down the eastern seaboard,
they decided we are all fish, and we didn't care if they killed us.
Yeah, we're all inbred. But the Freedmen allows us to all have these different separate narratives that all coalesce under that Freedmen designation, which is still a standing legal designation with over 3.5 million records. And that's where I'm hoping that I can get the farming community to go to.
Yeah, because I actually am a direct descendant of Elder Jane Gibson. So I have lots of historical, references, even in Virginia. And I'm like, John said I had to marry him and move to Virginia to marry a real Indian.
Hilarious.
Because John, has Native American ancestry as well. And it's a lot of shared ancestry. We're right there. Actually, the farm, not the most recent farms. We bought a farm that is roughly about 1,000 acres. Okay, cool. And it actually has 5 documented Indian villages on it. So, and they're Saponi, and for people to understand that, we were in Lawrenceville, we were in Virginia before we went to South Carolina.
Right,
we came back into
right.
North Carolina. Yeah. So if I'm a Chavis and I'm a descendant of Bartholomew Chavis and I'm from Granville County, I mean, come on, people.
Yeah, they were all.
Why are we so divided?
You know Glenn Chavis then from High Point, the historian Glenn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, that's where we're trying to tell people, look, I understand and it disrupts. some people's story and their history, and
Yeah.
But, with freedom and progress, I mean, isn't that where we're all trying to get to?
I don't know. We think.
I mean, I am.
We think we're all trying to get there, but
Yeah.
we got some Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Something going on.
But then there's also, I think there's also the dynamic between the indigenous and the black community. There's a reconciliation that has to happen because we know about the paper genocide that happened and why it happened.
Yeah.
And there's work to be done.
Look at the Lumbee and the Cherokee.
Shout out to the black.
The
How they do that?
strongest proponent, person that is against Lumbee federal recognition is the Cherokee,
Of course.
our own relatives.
We own-
Civilized.
I'm in a Cherokee book
And it's like,
and a Lumbee book.
here's our shared ancestry.
Why?
We're all one people. So, I mean, why do you see that? But, it's colonialism. It's, that colorism. It's all of these things that,
Right.
if we as a people, yes, can put it aside and then we see, that we can do more together. But as long as they can keep us divided and fighting, they're winning.
It's the
And so,
Hispanic too. We're all brothers and sisters, but they